freely amongst the jurors, we are still unable to reach a unanimous decision.
YNW Melly has been sitting in that cell for 6 long years, waiting on a verdict that seemed like it would never come. But now, the wait is finally over. Word is the delay was intentional, say they were stalling just to line things up, so Florida's new death penalty laws could be used against him.
That's why they waited so long to take him to trial. They was waiting for that law to pass.
The verdict just dropped, and let me tell you, no one saw this coming. In this video, we're breaking down everything, from the legal strategy behind the delays, to the courtroom drama, to YNW Melly's reaction when the decision was finally read. Let's get into it. The streets had been holding their breath, waiting on a verdict that felt like it would never arrive. The case against YNW Melly looked solid on paper, but justice moved painfully slow. Pre-trial proceedings dragged on for years, with Melly's legal team repeatedly pushing for his release on bond. The prosecution fought back hard, pointing to the gravity of the charges and the risk that Melly might flee. Ultimately, the judge sided with the state, and Melly remained behind Barsh's fate, uncertain. So why the delay? The complexity of the case played a big role, along with the painstaking effort to gather evidence. Then COVID-19 hit, disrupting court schedules across the country and causing even more delays. Melly's continued incarceration without a trial became a flashpoint, sparking heated debates. Supporters demanded his release, while others argued that the seriousness of the charges justified his detention. The legal tug-of-war drew comparisons to the case of Tamor Traven McIntyre Better, known as Take Another young artist, whose career collided with the justice system. If you're wondering how that connects, let me take you on a quick detour. Back in July 2016, Tay was arrested and charged with capital murder in a deadly home invasion. Because he was still a minor, he was placed on house arrest while awaiting trial. But Tay had other plans. On March 27, 2017, he cut off his ankle monitor and went on the run. What followed was a cross-country manhunt as he documented his fugitive life through social media and music. During his time on the run, Tay was allegedly involved in another murder in San Antonio, Texas, where 23-year-old Mark Anthony Saldivar was shot and killed during a robbery. This added a second murder charge to his growing list of serious offenses. While evading police, Tay released The Race, a song bragging about his life on the run. The music video, which showed him posing beside his own wanted poster, went viral, turning him into a symbol of defiance, but also a grim reminder of the real-life consequences of his actions. His run came to an end on June 30th, 2017, when U.S. Marshals arrested him in Elizabeth, New Jersey. In July 2019, Tay was convicted of murder and 3 counts of aggravated robbery for the 2016 incident and sentenced to 55 years in prison. Later in November 2019, he was indicted for the San Antonio murder and could still face the death penalty. Prosecutors, in Melly's case, were wary of another Tay scenario, someone who might flee or cause further harm if released. That fear, coupled with the high-profile nature of the case, likely contributed to the long pre-trial detention. As the justice system dragged its feet, public opinion remained sharply divided. Some saw Melly as a victim of a broken system, while others viewed the delays as necessary for the gravity of the charges he faced. Now, with the verdict finally in one chapter closes, but the story is far from over. The rapper's case has become a prime example in conversations about the problems with pretrial incarceration, especially when it comes to high-profile defendants facing serious charges. For YNW Melly, spending such a long time behind bars without a trial has carried major consequences. From a legal standpoint, the delay has given his defense team extra time to build a stronger case. But on a personal level, it's meant enduring the difficult realities of jail life and the heavy psychological strain of living in limbo. Professionally, it's put his music career on pause. No touring, no recording, no chance to grow during what could have been key years in his rise. Public opinion on Melly's situation is deeply divided. Supporters have launched social media campaigns, hashtags like Free Melly, and online petitions demanding his release and a fair trial. They argue that keeping him locked up without a conviction amounts to punishment before due process. They believe he should be out on bond while awaiting trial. Critics, however, stress the seriousness of the charges, first-degree murder, and the potential danger of releasing someone accused of such a violent crime. They highlight the need for justice for the victims and their families, arguing that public safety must come first. The media has played a massive role in shaping the narrative around Melly's case. News reports, blogs, and true crime podcasts have covered every angle, often comparing it to other high-profile cases like that of TK. The dramatic nature of the accusations and Melly's celebrity status have kept the story in headlines and online debates. One of the biggest concerns about releasing Melly on bond is the possibility, however small, that he could flee or get into more trouble, much like TK did. Given Melly's fame and resources, the risk is seen as more significant. That fear, combined with the weight of the charges, influenced the judge's decision to deny bond, aiming to prevent a repeat of what happened in TK's case. But Melly's prolonged detention has stirred bigger conversations about the justice system. His case has become a talking point for advocates pushing for bail reform and improvements to pre-trial detention conditions. As the legal process continues to unfold, public opinion remains split. Supporters are still calling for his release, while others insist that the severity of the charges makes his continued incarceration necessary. The media remains laser-focused on every development, feeding the public's interest in this high-stakes legal battle. Judges handling cases like this face immense pressure. First-degree murder is among the most serious charges in the system, often carrying life sentences or even the death penalty. In such situations, denying bond is standard, especially when there's a risk of flight or public danger. Another key factor is the strength of the prosecution's case. If the evidence appears solid, the court is far more likely to keep the accused in custody until trial. When the evidence against a defendant appears strong and points to a high likelihood of conviction, courts are often reluctant to grant bond. This isn't just about the risk of flight or public safety, it's also part of a broader legal strategy. In high-stakes cases like YNW Melly's, keeping the defendant in custody can give prosecutors an advantage. It creates pressure, potentially pushing the defense toward a plea deal or cooperation in exchange for leniency. Avoiding the unpredictability of a jury trial is often a key goal in such cases. However, the impact of pre-trial detention goes far beyond legal tactics. Being locked up while waiting for trial seriously limits a defendant's ability to participate in their own defense. It restricts communication with lawyers, limits access to legal resources, and makes it harder to gather supporting evidence. For Melly, being behind bars has not only been mentally exhausting, but also a real barrier to building a strong defense. In many cases, these delays push defense teams to speed up the trial process, which doesn't always work in their favor. Another important factor is public perception. In high-profile cases, judges know their decisions are under a microscope. Granting bond to someone accused of a violent crime like first-degree murder can lead to intense public backlash and the belief that the justice system is being too soft. On the other hand, denying bond sends a message that the court is taking the charges seriously and prioritizing public safety, even if it risks appearing overly harsh before a verdict has been reached. Now, if we look over to California, there's an interesting comparison in the case of Suga Knight. Despite facing similarly serious charges, Knight was initially granted bond. His legal team, led by attorney Thomas Mesereau, presented several arguments in his favor. They pointed to Knight's deteriorating health, including serious medical conditions, like blood clots, which they claimed weren't being properly treated in jail. They also emphasized that Knight had strong community ties and family connections, making him less likely to flee. Additionally, they argued that staying incarcerated was financially devastating for him. He couldn't manage his business affairs or fund his defense while behind bars. The prosecution, however, strongly opposed bond. They pointed to Knight's long criminal record, which included past charges for assault robbery and violent conduct. In their view, releasing him would pose a serious risk to public safety, and his history made him too dangerous to be let out on bail.
And my determination was that this is not a drive-by shooting, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. Shooter is at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in.
And what does hurt mean?
Herc is a term used by members of G-Shine to refer to each other. It's like calling each other bro or dude, same thing.